Anybody ever tell you about the argumentative group that scaled the giant wall and entered the prayer quarters of Dawood? When they came in and entered into Dawood's private space, فَفَزِعَ مِنْهُمْ, and he was terrified of them to the point where he was about to lose his mind. Faza' is actually used when you're so afraid you can't think straight anymore. So he was scared out of his mind when he saw them. قَالُوا لَا تَخَافْ, they said, no, don't be scared. We're not here to kill you. I mean, usually when people scale a castle wall and will break into a king's private quarters and look very aggressive, then you would think they're there to kill him. They say, no, relax, we're not here to kill you. We made all this effort because we wanted to discuss an issue with you. We just had a question, Ustad. So they jump in and they ask a question, and what's the question? خَصْمَانِ بَغَى بَعْضُنَا عَلَى بَعْضٍ. There are two groups that are arguing, one has done wrong against the other. فَحْكُمْ بَيْنَنَا بِالْحَقِّ. Why don't you make a fair decision among us? You are the ruler after all. Why don't you make a fair decision, just decision? وَلَا تُشْتِتْ, and don't be biased and don't use falsehood. Don't be inclined towards the wrong side. وَهْدِنَا إِلَى سَوَاءِ الصِّرَاطِ, and guide us to the most even path. Tell us what to do. Whatever verdict you give, we're going to follow it. Inna hada akhi, then one of them speaks and says, this is my brother, lahu tis'un wa tis'una na'ja. He's got 99 sheep. My brother owns how many? 99 sheep. Does that remind you of anything from the Bible story? Wali na'jatun wahida, and I only have one sheep. Faqala akfilniha. So he said, why don't you give me custody of your sheep? Wa'azzani fil khitab, and he uses his dignity and authority and imposes it on me when he talks to me. قَالَ لَقَدْ ظَلَمَكَ بِسُؤَالِ نَعْجَتِكَ إِلَى نِعَاجِهِ. So Dawud alayhi salam said, he's done wrong to you by asking you to add your one sheep to his. He shouldn't have done that. وَإِنَّ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْخُلَطَاءِ لَيَبْغِي بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. A lot of partners who mix with each other, and a lot of family members who mix with each other, a lot of people that are close to each other, they end up doing a lot of wrong to each other. Very profound statement. People who do a lot of wrong to you are very close to you. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَقَلِيلٌ مَّا هُمْ, except those who believe and do good deeds, and very few those are. And then Dawud realized, now check this out, so he gave this verdict, وَظَنَّ Dawud realized alayhi salam, it came to the realization, أَنَّمَا فَتَنَّاهُ, we were only testing him. Because these people, poof, they disappeared. They just disappeared. And he's like, what just happened? And he realized Allah was testing him. فَاسْتَغْفَرَ رَبَّهُ, then he asked Allah's forgiveness. فَخَرَّ رَاكِعًا وَأَنَابَ, he fell into ruku' and he repented. It's so beautiful. Let's go back and understand. Dawud alayhi salam is in the prayer quarters, in his mihrab. This group that came upon him, tasawwaru comes from the word surah. Surah means a gigantic wall, a wall that is impossible to scale. Actually, the purpose of a surah is so it cannot be scaled. These are the outer walls of a fort or a city. So the fact that they climbed like 50 feet to get into his castle, and there's a group of them, is extremely shocking. So he's off his feet. فَفَزِعَ مِنْهُمْ. So much so, and it's Dawud alayhi salam. He's killed Goliath before, right? He's killed Jalut before. He's been on the battlefield. It's not like he's a scared human being. But there are times where you get startled. He's not expecting that in his castle. So they break into him, and they show up there, and then they say, we have a case. And the case is, this is my brother, he has how many sheep, remember? So the guy who's talking has how many sheep? And by the way, Dawud alayhi salam used to be a very poor shepherd. Dawud alayhi salam used to be what? A very poor shepherd before he became an authority. That's how he ended up killing Jalut, because he was a shepherd and he used to, use a slingshot to kill the wolf and things like that. So who does Dawud alayhi salam relate with, you think? The guy who has one or the guy who has 99? And so immediately he says, I only have one, and he's using his authority to take my one sheep. And he's a judge. Dawud alayhi salam is a judge. And he says, that's wrong. They shouldn't do that. Anybody who has authority just takes authority. And by the way, that's an amazing sentiment to have from a king, because kings and authorities usually favor the wealthy, because they will need the favors from the wealthy later. Right? For a king to favor the poor is a noble quality. But the problem here is, because he's a judge, he's supposed to listen to both sides. Whether or not you agree with the guy with 99 or not. He never defended himself, did he? The guy with 99 sheep never defended himself. Simply the guy with one sheep spoke. Dawud alayhi salam was already rattled, shaken up, and he immediately gave the verdict that he shouldn't be doing that, because a lot of times they wrong each other. And they disappeared, and Dawud alayhi salam realized that in my rush to judgment, I didn't hear what? Both sides. And that's not right. He also realized that when a judge is terrified, overwhelmed with any emotion, they shouldn't be sitting in the judge's chair. It's very profound. He's the judge over his nation. He's the ruler. But a ruler needs to be emotionally stable to be able to pass judgments. If he's shocked, was he shocked in the beginning of the story? If a judge is shocked, terrified, scared, can he think straight? Is it possible he may rush to judgment or make an incorrect judgment? It's possible. If, for example, a guy went through a divorce and he's a divorce court judge, those ladies don't have a chance in his courtroom. Because he's going to see you see what I'm saying? If they have baggage, they're not going to be able to pass judgment. So he realizes there's baggage here. So he immediately recognizes his fault and turns to Allah and repents, and that's why Allah says, so we forgave him that. We forgave that. Meaning this small, for a moment he forgot what he's supposed to do. Dhikr can go away when you are in shock. But immediately, as soon as you come back to your senses, dhikr comes back. Rasulullah is being taught there are moments where you will be overwhelmed. But as soon as that overwhelming feeling is gone, you have to remember your master immediately. This is actually an inspiration of dhikr. Dawud alayhi salam, from the Bible's perspective, let me tell you something about him first. They call him David. You guys know that? Okay? They call him David. And when he became king, once he became king, he was actually very obsessed with his power, according to them. And he wanted to marry 99 wives. And he had 99 wives according to them, not according to us. And he said, I need 100th one. And so he sees this woman in a balcony. He looks out of his castle, he sees this lady in a balcony, he says, number 100. Except she's married. And she's married to one of the generals that is in his army. So he commands that general to go into war where he knows he's going to get killed. And so he sends him there, gets killed, and he marries the woman. And that's how he gets his 100th wife. This is the biblical version. Keep this version. This is not true at all that Dawud alayhi salam is given. I wanted to share this with you because if you don't know the Qur'an's narrative, it's like you have this twisted biblical version that takes away so much dignity from these amazing prophets.
والطير محشورة كل له أواب وشددنا ملكه وآتيناه الحكمة وفصل الخطاب وهل أتاك نبأ الخصم إذ تسوروا المحراب إذ دخلوا على داود ففزع منهم قالوا لا تخف خصمان بغى بعضنا على بعض فاحكم بيننا بالحق ولا تشطط